Hey everybody, Andy Reynolds here, COO and financial advocate from Ballast. I'm excited today to be sitting down with John Boardman, our CEO and founder and my business partner, to talk a little bit about what we've been thinking about in the office and the conversations that we've been having in the office. More remotely than typical, but today fortunately able to come sit distantly apart from each other, but be able to spend some time together. So, John, let's just kind of jump right into things. I think the number one question I'm getting right now from clients is how's the market doing so well in light of what's going on with COVID-19 and jobs and unemployment and whatnot. So, just thought maybe we'd start there if you want to share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be joined with you today, Andy. I think the market, when it's most healthy, is forward-looking, and right now, this market is obviously not looking at economic conditions that we exist in today. It's looking forward because what we've seen is a spike in unemployment and companies, profits going away, and many companies hemorrhaging cash right now. So markets today are not reflective of that. So it's obviously looking forward at some point down the road. How far that is, I think, varies by markets, but I think there is some acceptance at this point that this will, in fact, come to an end. Whether that's at the end of this year or the middle of next year, I guess would probably be the most dire prediction that I've heard. But there will be some resolution to this crisis that we're going through, and that companies will go back to making money again. I think it's that, as well as when the crisis hit, the most common sort of corporate reaction was that companies just suspended guidance. They didn't know what Q2 would look like. Many of them have had a hard time at the beginning of this earnings period even predicting what Q3 and Q4 might look like. So that void of information, I think, has really forced the markets to react on the news that it's receiving, which is the Fed doing everything in its power to stimulate the economy by keeping rates as low as possible. And obviously from Washington, various stimulus that's been pumped into the system, which happened quite quickly. And so to me, the market is just going to trade on the information it has. And so that void of actual corporate data paired with sort of an influx and sort of a flood of sort of big forces that I think are helping the market. Just generally speaking, I think that's a big part of it, but it sort of depends on the week. I mean, This week it feels good, but it wasn't but a few weeks ago. It felt like it was a little bit more fragile, so it's just a very fluid situation.
Yeah, I definitely think the market is moving on the short-term news and still trying to find a footing, still trying to figure out what direction, where are we going to be at the end of the year, and so many different directions we could be going. I think there's also some degree of that fear of missing out. Especially if you sold earlier, and now the market's come back so strongly in a matter of weeks. The fear of missing that rally, and who knows how long it continues. I think you're seeing some more money come back into the markets that way as well.
Right, and the market cap weighted nature of markets too. The S&P 500, which tends to be the more sort of quoted index today versus the Dow, which used to be so often most quoted, is market cap weighted. So those largest companies represent more, and they have been doing the best. And because so many of those are technology names that I think investors, markets, whoever you want to call it, is actually driving market prices. They see technology. They know money's being spent there. They know money's being spent on mobile activity, on things that don't require sort of face-to-face human interaction. So you've seen the names that have benefited, like an Amazon, from this, and that's become a comfortable place for investors to put money. And I think because those companies represent so much from a market cap standpoint, they're having an overwhelming impact, I think, on market performance. But if you look at the aggregate of the S&P 500, there's still well over half of the names are still off, and many of them significantly year to date. So it's not, the index itself is not truly telling the story of how stocks at the median level are actually performing.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a good point. We've talked in the past about this indexing effect that's really still relatively new. You know, we've been really seeing a big impact on it over the past 5 years or so. You know, maybe go back 10 years to see some substantial impact. But, you know, how does that, when the top 5 companies represent almost a third of the market now, you know, how does that, and we all are chasing those companies because we all are investing passively, not we all, but there's a big movement to passive investing. How does that continue to add fuel to that fire? And when is there a breaking point of, you know, you look at valuations and they start to not make sense at all anymore, and that change occurs?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's yet to be seen. I mean, this is a very sort of fractured market. I mean, you have the growth side that's, you know, really, I think year to date was outperforming as of this morning. The value side of the index by like 27% year to date. That's a pretty unusual market environment, and I think it's obviously the technological makeup of the growth side has a lot to do with that sort of dichotomy. But yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, the index investing has, the implications of it, I should say, have been questioned for a while, and I think this will be an interesting period to see.